Tom Selleck looks unrecognizable during a rare outing. The star was seen running errands around Los Angeles on July 14th, and instead of sporting his iconic mustache, the 80-year-old grew out his hair and was rocking a full gray beard to match his longer.
Everyone thought Tom Selleck was the ideal man. A television hero in a Hawaiian shirt, driving a red Ferrari, sporting a mustache, and always doing the right thing. A symbol of quiet masculinity. No scandals, no controversies, no mistakes. But that was only half the truth, because behind the spotlight was a long string of silent sorrows, of crushing blows the public rarely saw, a marriage that fell apart just as America was celebrating him, a youth spent in uniform only to return and be called a killer for simply fulfilling his duty, nights spent alone in an empty house by the sea, and a stepdaughter he raised quietly for a lifetime, without ever boasting a word. Tom Selleck almost became Indiana Jones, but was bound by a contract. He was once sued for stealing over 1 million gallons of water during a drought, criticized for his ties to the NRA amid rising anti-gun sentiment, and abandoned by many who once admired him, simply because he chose silence over confrontation. He was a hero of American television, but also a man who endured moments of collapse, regret, and spent 4 years handwriting his memoir as a way to apologize to the past. And then Tom Selleck began revealing unnamed relationships, sleepless nights in Hawaii, moments when he succumbed to the seduction of fame, and the one thing he regrets most in life, something he had never shared before. We once thought we knew this man well, but the truth is, for over 40 years, he has hidden a very different version of himself from the world. And perhaps, once you learn that truth, you'll never look at Tom Selleck the same way again. Early life. Tom Selleck was born on January 29, 1945, in Detroit, an industrial city still recovering from the aftermath of World War II. When he was 3 years old, his family moved to Sherman Oaks, California, a quiet suburb gradually becoming a haven for thousands of American families dreaming of a fresh start. It was there that Tom grew up in a household of 4 siblings, surrounded by mischievous laughter and the unbending rules of his mother. Even in his days at Grant High School, Tom was a quiet phenomenon. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches tall, he sometimes felt like a walking lamppost in the schoolyard. Though his height made him stand out, Tom was so reserved he bordered on shy. Once, his 2 older brothers caught a mouse and chased him around the house, prompting the tall boy to lock himself in the bathroom for an hour, too terrified to come out. In his memory, his mother, Martha, was a strict but always fair woman. She was once honored as California Mother of the Year, but to Tom she had been Mother of the Year long before he was even born. She was famous for her cherry pie, until the kids ruined it by mashing it up with milk. After that, she never baked it again. Tom never dreamed of becoming an actor. He once aspired to be a basketball player or a salesman, but in the end, it was that same mother, the woman who would quietly sit in cheap theaters to watch the films her son appeared in, smiling proudly even after scenes that didn't include him, who became his greatest support when he took his first uncertain steps down a path no one in the family had ever imagined. And from that small house, a timid boy would grow into the face of justice in millions of American living rooms, even though he had never received a single day of formal acting training. Early career. Tom Selleck didn't enter the University of Southern California, USC, through the gates of art, but on a sports scholarship for basketball and baseball. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches with a muscular build and a ruggedly handsome face, he quickly stood out on the court. But fate had another plan when a drama teacher at USC casually suggested he try acting. That passing remark led Tom to abandon his business major and enroll at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, one of California's top acting schools. But before he could graduate in 1967, Tom received a draft notice during one of the most volatile periods of the Vietnam War. He served for 6 years in the California Army National Guard, Company C, 1st Battalion, 160 Infantry Regiment. Though he was never deployed to Vietnam, his time in uniform left deep impressions, not just in discipline, but in understanding the complexity and hidden prejudices of American society. Joining the military was the first time I really understood what America was, Tom once said. I had never seen a place bring together so many classes, races, and backgrounds, and I realized how little I actually knew. He recalled that when he returned from training, proud to wear the uniform, he wasn't met with gratitude, but with scorn. No one shot at me, I was just a guardsman. But walking back in uniform, people called me a baby killer. That feeling stuck with me for a long time. Though he never saw combat, Tom consistently fought to ensure that soldiers weren't equated with war. Years later, when he portrayed Thomas Magnum, a Vietnam veteran, he insisted on keeping the character's military background despite pushback from networks. Magnum P.I. was the first show that dared to portray Vietnam vets as decent people. I'm proud of that. Returning from the military, Tom cautiously stepped into the entertainment industry through forgettable roles. Commercial model for Pepsi, Revlon, Right Guard, a guest on The Dating Game, and small indistinct parts in Daughters of Satan, The Rockford Files. His mother once quietly watched a movie that featured a nude scene, not involving Tom, then smiled and told him, "You acted well." A simple sentence, but enough to keep him going. His career at the time was like a stalled car, eager to speed forward but without momentum. To outsiders, Tom seemed like just another good-looking model trying to break into film. But deep down, he was a returning soldier, cautiously rebuilding himself. Not with noise, but with patience. Career success. Before Magnum, Tom Selleck had spent nearly a decade struggling, not just on television but on the big screen, playing roles no one remembered and watching opportunities slip through his fingers. He had guest starred in a slew of popular TV shows like The Rockford Files, appeared in the film The 7 Minutes, 1971, and left only a faint impression in The Sackets, 1979, a well-known Western TV movie where he acted alongside Sam Elliott. Despite his striking looks and steady acting chops, Selleck remained a supporting actor, forever, the familiar face no one could name. In 1980, after years of forgettable roles and over 6 failed auditions, Tom Selleck was finally handed the biggest break of his career, the role of Thomas Magnum, a private investigator in Hawaii who drove a Ferrari, wore Hawaiian shirts, sported a mustache, and wielded a gun instead of medals. The role didn't just revive a fading career. It redefined the image of a television hero, charming but humble, smart yet optimistic, tough with a tender heart. Around the same time, a phone call from Steven Spielberg presented him with a career-altering fork in the road. Tom was the first choice for Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But when the script arrived, he had already signed an exclusive contract with CBS for Magnum P.I. He turned the role down, a decision that seemed to be his biggest professional regret. Ironically, a strike by the Screen Actors Guild delayed Magnum's production for 6 months, enough time for him to do both projects. But Tom never looked back. "I didn't want to look my parents in the eye and lie," he said. For him, keeping his word mattered more than fame. And then Magnum P.I. aired, not just a successful TV show, it was a milestone, a turning point, a pop culture icon. In its first season, 1980 to 1981, the show ranked in the top 20 most watched programs in the U.S., earning a Nielsen rating of 21, reaching 14 to 15 million households per episode. In the 1982 to 1983 season, it climbed to number 4 nationwide, an unprecedented feat for a series whose lead was a Vietnam veteran. By 1983 to 1984, Magnum still held strong at 6th place with an average rating of 22.4. proving its appeal wasn't just a passing fad. Beyond the ratings, Magnum P.I. became an 8-season phenomenon from 1980 to 1988, with a total of 162 episodes. Its final episode, aired in 1988, drew 50.7 million viewers, becoming the 5th most-watched series finale in U.S. television history, trailing only MASH, Cheers, Seinfeld, and Friends. But what made the show truly timeless wasn't just the numbers. Before Magnum, Hollywood often portrayed Vietnam veterans as broken, psychologically unstable, violent, or socially detached. Thomas Magnum, in his Hawaiian shirt, tilted cap, witty narration, and kind heart, shattered that image. For the first time, Americans saw a Vietnam vet who had survived war and remained decent, funny, responsible, and committed to what was right. Magnum P.I. became the first show to depict a Vietnam veteran in a positive light, not haunted or unhinged, but as a man of depth, reliability, and humanity. Beyond winning over audiences, the role of Thomas Magnum finally earned Tom Selleck the professional recognition he deserved. He was nominated 5 consecutive years for the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series, 1982 to 1986, winning in 1984. A year later, he also won the 1985 Golden Globe for Best Actor in a TV Series, Drama. These prestigious honors weren't just proof of Selleck's personal charisma. They were a clear declaration that Magnum P.I. was not just a pop culture craze, but a high point in American television acting during the 1980s. The Smithsonian Institution exhibited Magnum's mustache, ring, and cap as cultural artifacts, alongside Archie Bunker's chair and Mary Tyler Moore's beret. Because to many Americans, Magnum wasn't just a character. He was the embodiment of the decent American man, strong but not cruel, tough but loving, deeply honest, and always fighting for justice. The show's cultural weight was so immense that even Frank Sinatra, the 20th century music legend, couldn't resist. He personally reached out to request a guest role with one condition: "Let me punch someone on screen." The team obliged, writing an entire fight scene just so Sinatra could shine on screen alongside Selleck. It wasn't just a cameo. It was a testament to the enormous cultural prestige Magnum P.I. had achieved, something rare and nearly impossible to replicate in American television history. After Magnum, Tom Selleck didn't choose to rest at the top. He stepped out of the safe zone of television and challenged himself on the big screen. He played an American baseball player adrift in Japan in Mr. Baseball, 1992, transformed into a Western sharpshooter in Quigley Down Under, 1990, and continued to appear in light action comedy films that bore his personal stamp. But it was a supporting role on television that reignited his name for a whole new generation of viewers. In 1996, he made his first appearance on Friends, the most iconic sitcom of the 1990s, as Dr. Richard Burke, Monica's older, charming, and elegant lover. In just 6 episodes, Selleck won over audiences completely, from the way he arched his brow, his subtle smile, to the calm grace in every line. He was no longer Thomas Magnum, but a man entering middle age, still magnetic, and at times, heartbreakingly vulnerable. That role not only earned him another prestigious Emmy nomination, but also proved that he was not confined to a single character type. At 50, he demonstrated that charm doesn't lie in youth, but in poise, depth, and refinement honed over time. He didn't stop there. Selleck took on the role of Police Chief Jesse Stone in the long-running TV film series of the same name, and even wrote the script for the 5th installment himself. During this same era, he also took a bold risk by reviving the classic Western, a genre that once ruled the screen but had since faded, through films like Last Stand at Sabre River, 1997, Crossfire Trail, 2001, and Monty Walsh, 2003. While they didn't make a commercial splash, these films were praised among classic film enthusiasts, especially older viewers who cherished that old-school, masculine, principled American spirit. In 2007, he replaced James Caan in the TV series Las Vegas, playing A.J. Cooper, proving once again that his appeal was never bound by age. Then in 2010, Tom Selleck achieved something rare with Blue Bloods, a multi-generational police drama that lasted over a decade, where he portrayed Frank Reagan, the stern but moral and internally conflicted police commissioner of New York, and the patriarch of a family of cops. The role not only connected him with a new generation of viewers, but also showcased his evolved artistry, portraying a hero who didn't shout slogans, but quietly held the line of what's right. Blue Bloods was never a social media sensation or a ratings gimmick. But thanks to the quiet strength, depth, and family values Selleck brought, the series became a silent pillar on CBS, consistently ranking in the top 10 most-watched shows in the U.S. for 5 consecutive years, releasing over 275 episodes and airing in more than 150 countries. In an era when most series are replaced after a few seasons, Blue Bloods endured and thrived, a near impossibility. And the heart of the series, according to Tom himself, wasn't in the tense investigations, but in a scene that seemed too quiet: the family dinner. In every episode, the Reagan family gathers at the dinner table talking about right and wrong, beliefs, generational divides, and how to live with integrity in a complex world. At first, even the producers were skeptical. Who's going to watch a bunch of people just sitting and debating morality? But ironically, that very moment is what made millions stay. Because in today's world of division, confusion, and anger, the image of a family, despite their differences, still sitting together, listening and loving each other, is deeply precious. The role of Frank Reagan didn't bring Tom Selleck another trophy, but it gave him something more enduring: long-term respect from the public and a new kind of symbol. No longer the Hawaiian-shirted hero riding a steel horse, but the quiet father who carried both a city and a family with integrity, compassion, and unshakable resolve. Unlike many veteran stars who take a role and disappear behind the scenes, Tom Selleck chose to be a builder from within. He served as executive producer on the Jesse Stone films and personally penned the script for Part 5, a film praised for its character depth and distinctly American noir atmosphere. But perhaps his clearest creative imprint was on Blue Bloods. As a behind-the-scenes creative advisor, Selleck directly influenced scripts, story rhythm, and the moral architecture of each episode. When CBS once proposed cutting the family dinner scene, calling it draggy and lacking drama, he fought hard to keep it. To him, it wasn't just a detail, it was the soul of the series, the space where characters were heard, conflicted, and allowed to grow. His insistence on that point helped Blue Bloods maintain steady quality for over a decade, something few modern TV series can claim. In a television age ruled by algorithms and short-term ratings, Tom Selleck chose the harder path: to fight for depth, humanity, and enduring decency in storytelling. That's what sets him apart, not just as a star, but as a true keeper of the storytelling flame. Personal life and tragedy. Before becoming a household name for millions of viewers, Tom Selleck once had a quiet and modest family life that lasted over a decade. In 1971, when Tom Selleck was still a little-known face in the television world, he married model actress Jacqueline Ray. She already had a young son named Kevin, and Tom didn't hesitate. He adopted Kevin as his own, gave him the Selleck name, and became the only father the boy ever truly knew. 11 years later, just as Magnum P.I. was turning him into a national star, the quiet marriage unraveled. The real reason was never made public. All people knew was that behind the studio lights stood a man returning each night to a lonely home by the Hawaiian shore, a place he once described as, "The house was beautiful, but at night all you heard were the waves and your own reflection on the glass." Even after the divorce, Tom never abandoned his role as a father. Kevin pursued a career in music and later became the drummer for the rock band Tonic, not because of his father's fame. Tom never brought his son into the spotlight, nor did he mention Kevin's name on talk shows. He chose to stand quietly in the background, supporting and observing, occasionally showing up at gigs like any ordinary dad, unnoticed. When Kevin ran into trouble in his teenage years, the tabloids began digging, but Tom refused all interview requests. "If I make a public statement to defend him, it means I've accepted that people have the right to talk about it," he said. It wasn't cowardly silence, it was love, so strong it didn't need to be proven. In a rare 1984 interview with People magazine, Tom reflected on the divorce. "When you get married, you're not just making a promise to the other person. You're promising yourself to be the best man you can be. Divorce doesn't mean you broke that promise, it just means you're learning how to keep it in a different way." And then, fate arranged for him to meet his second life partner. They first saw each other in a London theater, when she was performing in the musical Cats. In 1984, Tom was in England filming a commercial and decided to attend a performance of Cats, then returned 2-3 nights in a row just to watch one standout young actress. Her name was Jilly Mack. As for Jilly, she had no idea who he was. Later, she recalled, "I saw this mustached American guy in the front row just staring, no expression. I turned to my friend and said, 'Who the ass is that?'" After the third performance, Tom asked her out to dinner. They clicked, kept in touch, and not long after, Jilly moved to the US to live with Tom. He was in the post-divorce chapter of his life, and she was a young actress trying to find her footing. Their relationship developed quickly, but they kept it quiet. No public appearances, no media attention. In 1987, they married in Lake Tahoe. It was a discreet wedding, attended only by close family and never publicly announced. The following year, their daughter Hannah was born. Tom made the decision to step back from work for nearly 2 years to focus on raising his family. "I didn't want to be the kind of father my daughter would have to forgive someday," he said. The family moved to a 65-acre ranch in Ventura. Tom farmed and grew avocados. Jilly took care of the home and cooked. Hannah grew up in a peaceful environment, developing a strong bond with sports, especially horseback riding. Their life wasn't loud, but it wasn't cut off from the world either. When Tom received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the whole family showed up, bringing a small broom and polish to keep the star shining. A simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes about the genuine closeness of this family. Tom Selleck's ranch life was once seen as the ideal image of peace, connection, and freedom from the pressures of fame. But that very ranch also brought him into one of the few legal disputes of his career. In 2015, during one of California's most severe droughts, Tom Selleck was accused of hiring water trucks to collect water from the Caleguas Municipal Water District, located about 30 kilometers from his ranch, to irrigate his 60-plus acre avocado farm in Ventura County. The water transfers were said to have occurred over nearly 2 years, totaling an estimated 1.4 million gallons. The water agency sued him, claiming he had unlawfully used a public water supply. In the end, the case was settled out of court. Tom agreed to pay over $20,000 to reimburse investigative costs, but admitted no wrongdoing. Though he wasn't convicted, the incident slightly tarnished his image as a man of integrity, an identity long tied to characters like Thomas Magnum and Frank Reagan. For someone viewed as a moral compass of television, it was an unfortunate blemish. Shortly after the ranch controversy, Selleck faced another wave of criticism, this time stemming from his personal affiliations. For years, he had been one of the most recognizable faces linked to the National Rifle Association, NRA, a powerful and controversial gun rights lobbying group. With his on-screen persona as a gun-carrying hero, his spokesperson role once seemed fitting, even natural. But as school shootings became more frequent and devastating, the public began to question that association. Many in the arts, a generally liberal-leaning community, openly criticized him. Though Tom repeatedly stated that he did not advocate violence and supported the Second Amendment out of belief in civil rights, not a love of firearms, public sentiment grew less forgiving. For some, his connection to the NRA became a hard-to-erase stain on his public record. In 2018, he quietly stepped down from the NRA's board of directors, offering no explanation. It was a silent retreat, true to his nature, discreet, non-confrontational. Yet many observers saw the move as a clear acknowledgement that public image, especially for a symbol of moral television, cannot remain detached from social emotion forever. Tom Selleck's silent withdrawal from the NRA wasn't the first time he stepped back rather than clash with public opinion. In truth, he had never been outspoken about politics. Though believed to lean moderately conservative, he rarely made public declarations, a rare stance in an entertainment world where voices often align with progressive movements. Still, that didn't shield him from critique. In a well-known 1999 interview on The Rosie O'Donnell Show, Selleck was pressed hard about his NRA ties and stance on gun rights. Many expected a heated exchange, but instead of arguing, he remained calm, responded with civility, and avoided provocative statements. That approach, no attack, no defense, no evasion, but also no retaliation, solidified Tom Selleck's image as an old-fashioned man in a noisy era, reserved, composed, and respectful of differing views. He understood there are things best kept private, not out of fear, but because he believed kindness doesn't need to be loud. Legacy and influence. Tom Selleck isn't just a familiar face on television. He is an American cultural icon in the truest sense. With Magnum P.I., he embodied a new kind of man, free-spirited yet honorable, effortlessly charming yet grounded in integrity, accompanied by a red Ferrari 308, a Hawaiian shirt, and his iconic Detroit Tigers cap, which together became defining fashion symbols of the 1980s. The role became so widely recognized that it was once used to promote tourism in Hawaii, and his mustache was famously imitated across the country. 3 decades later, Blue Bloods' Frank Reagan carried that legacy forward, but in a deeper, more introspective way. He became the portrait of a calm, principled father figure who knew how to argue and how to listen. Tom once said, "In commercials, the dad is often the idiot. I wanted to break that." And he did, helping to restore the image of the father as a pillar of strength, something that had quietly vanished from American television. Though not loud in the media, he has been honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, 1986, an honorary doctorate, and recognition from veterans organizations as an actor of decency, loyalty to his roles, and respect for his audience. His contributions behind the camera, like preserving the family dinner scenes in Blue Bloods, prove that his influence extends far beyond acting into storytelling itself. That's why his name is often mentioned alongside icons like Carol Burnett, Frank Sinatra, or Sam Elliott, not just for fame, but for how they've preserved traditional values with quiet dignity and unwavering commitment. Present life. Having spent most of his life embodying integrity and calm strength on screen, Tom Selleck has chosen a similarly quiet, grounded path in real life. He currently lives on a 63-acre ranch in Ventura County, California, once owned by Dean Martin, where he mows his own fields, maintains the roads, tends to the orchards, and rarely makes public appearances. He's not a fan of gyms, once joking, "I'd rather sweat in the sun than stare at my own belly button in the mirror." But behind that calm demeanor is a man of discipline. He lives by a daily code of physical activity, manual labor, and structured routines, as if still in training camp. A former college basketball player, he stayed active until his knees no longer allowed. Rather than indulge in lavish pleasures, he found joy in collecting vintage cars, Ferraris, Mustangs, and especially World War II-era military vehicles, each one maintained and driven regularly. Not for show, but out of respect for history. At age 80, he hasn't slowed down. Blue Bloods recently entered its 14th season, 2024 to 2025, and although Selleck has often considered retirement, he keeps returning to set. Every time we wrap, I think it's my last role, but I come back because I love the work, he said. It's not just professional routine, it's loyalty to his audience, who've stood by him for over 50 years. In May 2024, Tom released his memoir, You Never Know, a book he wrote by hand over 4 years on yellow legal pads, often reading passages aloud to his wife during dinner. It opens with a teenage car crash and traces a path backward through an insecure youth, 6 failed films, and repeated career gambles. He writes about turning down Indiana Jones due to Magnum's schedule and his struggles with self-doubt. For the first time, he opens up about personal romances, especially during the Magnum P.I. era, 1980 to 1988, when he became one of Hollywood's most sought-after sex symbols. Although he doesn't name all the women involved, Selleck admits to being tempted by fame, fleeting romances, and indulgence, especially during his years filming in Hawaii. The memoir also touches on something rarely discussed: loneliness, a persistent insecurity beneath the calm surface, and why he never chased tabloid attention to maintain fame. He calls himself a bricklayer, someone who tries to finish each role properly before moving to the next, even if that means turning down bigger offers or trimming budgets. Just showing up and collecting a paycheck, and that's not my idea of doing the job, he writes. Outside of acting, Selleck quietly continues his charitable work, supporting veterans, donating to fire departments, and helping fellow actors behind the scenes, never seeking recognition. He doesn't give big speeches or attend lavish fundraising galas, yet he's often called Hollywood's silent hero. You Never Know isn't a victory lap. It's a late thank you letter to the public, from a man who never chased headlines, but always gave everything to the role. And perhaps that's the price and the reward of a career built with integrity, earning the right to remain silent and still be heard. His daughter, Hannah Selleck, now a professional equestrian, once said, "I didn't grow up in a showbiz family. My dad always tried to give me the most normal life possible." She added, "I learned discipline from him, not through words, but through the way he lived every day." Her honest reflection confirms what may be the greatest role of his life, being a father who stayed in the background, but never out of reach. Tom Selleck never raced with the times. He moved slowly, steadily, and stayed true to himself until the very end. No noise, no boasting, and never losing what mattered throughout more than half a century in the business. At 79, he's still working, still living with discipline, still believing in the value of kindness, both on screen and off. If there's one thing people remember about him, it's not the mustache or the red Ferrari, but a career built quietly, steadfastly, with unwavering faith in doing what's right. If you've ever admired Tom Selleck, share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep discovering the untold stories behind the icons who defined an era that can never be replaced.